Welcome to the SSI Orbit Podcast, a forum for conversations that explore the ever-growing ecosystems of self-sovereign identity. And I'm your host, Mathieu Glaude. One of kind of the earliest projects that or dreams, let's say, that a lot of the people behind Ethereum wanted to create from the start was these DAOs, these decentralized autonomous organizations. And for any listeners looking for a little more information or context around DAOs, you'll get some in this conversation, I'm sure. There's also a prior conversation with Stepan that was done, I think it was episode 16 of SSI Orbit. But yeah, if you're looking to learn more about DAOs. And so while DAOs have existed, I guess, in Ethereum since 2016 or so, they were kind of early R&D experiments or more of like science projects rather than real world projects. But it seems like in 2021, the last year that just ended, there was kind of a breakout moment for DAOs, where, you know, there are now, after 2021, hundreds of DAOs that see daily activity from their members, the hundreds of DAOs that pay to their members, that build products, that vote on the use of shared funds. And I just pulled this number this morning that collectively DAOs on Ethereum govern assets worth more than $16 billion today, which I'm certain if we do this conversation at the same time next year in 2023, mid-January, I would not be surprised if that number was a multitude higher than that. There's one DAO in particular, more of a recent DAO, the Ethereum Name Service, ENS, that saw breakout growth, growing to hundreds of thousands of users. You may see, if you're active on Twitter, or I think you and I, Stepan, are both quite active in crypto Twitter, or at least follow a lot of people. There's a lot of people that have this .eth kind of tag beside their name. This means that they own an Ethereum name service. So there's hundreds of thousands of users, hundreds of integrations, and they've more recently created a new treasury for their DAO of $1.9 billion to continue funding of the ecosystem. So hopefully that gives just an overview for everyone on kind of where we are today with DAOs. This discussion is more going to be anchored towards the future of work and how the future of work will be shaped perhaps by involvement in a DAO or multiple DAOs. It seems like there's two distinct communities right now. There's obviously you have different crypto communities based on the coin they're shilling or just the project that they're a part of. There's also communities in the digital identity or decentralized identity space. Both are kind of working towards identity stuff. So I guess based on the fact that you're very knowledgeable on both sides of things and you've done projects on both sides of things, where do you see perhaps opportunities to apply the self-sovereign identity principles or frameworks towards the Web3 space?
Yeah, so I agree with the sentiment that DAOs are on the rise. So decentralized autonomous organization, this is still quite a vague concept. And I would actually argue that DAOs existed, the first proto-DAOs existed even before Ethereum. I would say that Bitcoin was the first DAO. It is a decentralized system that is governed by the protocol rules, that has no single person or organization that owns and controls it, and that has a programmable way of implementing changes into itself through forking or updating its code. And then this organization actually rewards its contributors like miners or users or application developers to contribute meaningful work to grow the whole network. And it's been 12 years since Bitcoin launched. Now, obviously, DAOs evolved a lot, and we had a lot of experimentation. So there was the first DAO that failed. I think it failed not because the concept of decentralized organization was wrong, but because there was a bug in the code. And back then, there was just no concept of code audit, smart contract auditing in Ethereum. And that was one of the lessons learned, that you actually need to audit your code. Kind of sounds obvious in retrospective, but we learn as we do mistakes. Today, in the last couple of years, the concept of DAOs, first of all, it grew substantially. So from a couple dozens of DAOs, today we have thousands of DAOs, I would say more than 10,000. And I see at least a few more created every day. Probably we will see hundreds and even thousands of DAOs created every day sometime in the future, just because this is such a powerful form of organization that it is not universal. You cannot run a nuclear energy station with the DAO. Maybe it probably doesn't make sense to govern it as decentralized way. But in a lot of Web3 and decentralized use cases, DAO is the best organizational form because it gives control and ownership to contributors, to the community. It allows people to organize around shared mission or shared culture. Some DAOs might not even have a specific product. Like, for example, Friends with Benefits, one of the most successful DAOs, they started as just gated community. So they have a token, you need to buy the token to get into the community. But because they were so rigorous about maintaining culture and about making sure that there's stuff to do once you're inside, making sure, ensuring the quality of the community, they became popular. And today they have a lot of, they organize events, conferences, they build software, and this organization kind of evolved, and projects just emerge as organizations evolve. And then if we think about self-sovereign identity principles, I think crypto, Web3, and SSI were always interconnected, although even though they might be applied to different industries or different problems, there's a lot of shared principles. It is about decentralization, it is about ownership, about control, about privacy, about maybe pseudonymity. And in decentralized identity or I see that most the growth of decentralized identity is happening much, much faster in Web3 than it is in other traditional use cases. I don't say that Web3 is the only way or the only form how decentralized identity will evolve, but today we see much more traction. And one of the reasons is because of the narrative, and because there's much more alignment of incentives to create decentralized identity, specifically in DAOs or in Web3 world. So you mentioned the example of Ethereum name service. They have hundreds of thousands of customers and a lot of people who use their ENS, which is just another form of digital identity, digital pseudonymous decentralized identity. A lot of people use it publicly on Twitter or other social media. And that's something which actually don't see with DIDs, happening with DIDs yet. And I think partly that is due to the fact that people just share this culture and they buy into the story that ENS is telling them. It is different technological solutions, so it is different from decentralized identifiers, but it is achieving the same goal. It allows people to own and control decentralized identity, where they can attach different attributes to, they can sign into different services, they can engage into peer-to-peer conversations and just build reputation on top of that pseudonymous identity. And I think as more applications for decentralized identity are being developed, there will be more and more merge between the two, between we can say this like kind of pure SSI vision and more like Web3 blockchain driven vision. It is not, at the end of the day, it is not about technology that powers it. It is about the value that customers get out of it. And it's not as important which technology will provide it, as long as it is valuable, and it also complies with some of the core principles like privacy preservation and universal interoperability, things that we want to get from decentralized identity. And also another reason why this adoption is happening faster is because in Web3, decentralized autonomous organizations are able to build new institutions, whereas in more traditional industries, maybe finance or education, any SSI company is actually forced to adapt and comply with existing institutions that were created for offline world or for more centralized digital world. So for example, I've been working on building, applying self-sovereign identity and verifiable credentials for higher ed credentialing system and working with universities. And universities are very conservative organizations. So they really, the main benefit that they see from, or at least 4 years ago that they saw from verifiable credentials was just digitizing their existing process. So now students can get digital diploma, which is good, but it is not actually showing the full power of self-sovereign identity. You can achieve the same result. You can build digital diplomas with PDF or I don't know, XML. There's a lot of technology to create digital documents. Verifiable credential is not unique here. And in DAOs, for example, what we do is decentralized autonomous organization, they do not rely on LinkedIn profiles. They do not rely on CVs. They do not rely on university diplomas when they hire or onboard or assess new contributors. So they need alternative institutions to do competency assessment, to measure and to do credentialing, to measure skills, to measure competencies, to just coordinate their workforce and their contributors around some of the problems that they need to solve. So this is just one of the examples, but I think generally in Web3 and in decentralized autonomous organizations, there's much more freedom to build new kind of institutions and new processes, and companies, innovators are not constrained by existing rules that usually were created in pre-internet era. So that creates more experiments and that creates more innovation.
The fact that you have composability of not only software, but composability of data, composability of ideas is what is probably one of the main driving forces behind the rapid kind of innovation and iterations that we see in the Web3 space. The .eth, so that these ends domain, it's interesting to me because you see them, like I mentioned earlier, a lot on like Twitter profiles. And so I think talked about this in the past. It's funny if you look at Twitter profiles right now, there's a lot of just at something because people are kind of associating themselves with a clan or a group or something like that, right? And when people are using this .eth in their name, you kind of know, hey, we're part of the same team, part of the same thing. We have the same values and beliefs and stuff like that. And the .eth it's kind of like a URL, right? That's just rather than me, and it adds kind of better user experience to the crypto space. If I'm trying to interact with you, or I don't know, to do a query to see what you're up to on Ethereum, or if I'm looking to send some tokens to you, for example, it's much easier for me to send it to your kind of this URL or this .eth name, rather than just some composition of letters and numbers, which forms your public key. So I get that. I guess one difference I would see between kind of these domain names and like a DID would be one's public and one's private, or the DID could be public or private. So there's maybe some use cases for kind of the .eth that aren't necessarily as powerful as they would be if you had a private DID. Just for example, like I could send anything to a .eth domain, right? I could go to a Twitter account, I could see, and I could send them something that could compromise them. I could send anything to them. It's public, right? So it's kind of like a comparison to that would be email, like an email address. If I have your email address, I could send anything to you. And what's funny about the this domain, this ETH domain, is that if I send something there, well, if I send like a nude picture, for example, of someone to this, you're now holding this, and if you want to get rid of it, you're going to have to pay, I don't know how much in gas fees to get it out of there, right? And it's publicly viewable. And that's, I guess, just kind of like email, but email, no one has access to your email other than you and your email provider, but other than you. Whereas this is publicly viewable by anyone. So I'm wondering if there are like specific use cases that are very powerful for this type of, because it's a type of identifier, right? Are there use cases that are more powerful for this type of identifier versus perhaps a decentralized identifier that's private and perhaps rotates and stays with you? Do you see kind of the difference between both of them, and maybe some use cases or advantages that people could use on both of the properties that they have?
These two solutions, Ethereum naming system and decentralized identifiers, they are not competing with each other. Those are solving very different problems, and you use naming system for something that you want to make public, and something you want to be discoverable by other people. So you can actually link one to another to create more sophisticated systems. I'm actually pretty sure that this is exactly where this will go in the future. So the development of decentralized identity will go into direction where we will combine SSI technologies, decentralized identifiers primarily, with tools from Web3 such as NFTs, if you want to make a credential public and publicly discoverable, and Ethereum naming system, and not just Ethereum naming system, because we have multiple blockchains, multiple ecosystems. The future seems to be quite multi-chain. So ENS doesn't solve this problem of universal identifier. We need some abstraction layer on top of that, which DID seems like a perfect solution for, that would encompass multiple on-chain and off-chain identities. So you can have a single DID through which you control Ethereum account and, I don't know, Polkadot and Cosmos and Near protocol and whatever else blockchain you're using, as well as maybe government-issued data, verifiable credentials, and Web2 accounts. So it is not a competing solution, and I don't think it will be a competing solution. However, combining these two, especially, so you mentioned these two kind of benefits or perceived benefits from Ethereum naming system. One is just ability to publicly discover what other people have, and that is pure technological goal of this system. But another one, which is very, very important, is cultural aspect. And for example, NFTs are quite bad. It is quite bad technology, frankly, for credentialing. You won't mint your house records as NFTs. Just doesn't make sense. But NFTs are very easy thing to explain, and it just became part of the culture. NFTs are much wider known concept than verifiable credentials, for example. Therefore, I see a lot of companies, a lot of startups, a lot of decentralized autonomous organizations using concept of NFTs, or some people call them non-transferable or private NFTs, basically because they just never heard about verifiable credentials. And at some point, they will learn that there's already a solution for that. And I think the more elegant solution would be that you have your DID. Through the DID, you control your private decentralized storage, something like using IPFS or Filecoin or Ceramic Network, where you have your data pod. In that data pod, you have credentials, you have data from multiple applications, you have your, I don't know, preferences, any kind of data. And then for some of that you choose to keep private, like healthcare records. Some of that you choose to share with certain people or certain applications. Maybe my shopping history, I want to share it with e-commerce website or marketplace. And then some of those you mint NFTs out of that, and maybe rewards or some, I don't know, I attended a conference. I received this commendation from somebody. That is something that I just want to share, or maybe link to my Twitter account. I just want to share it publicly because, because I have some reasons to do so. Because it is not because those two are not competing approaches or solutions, it does make sense to combine and build some kind of hybrid solution out of it. And that's actually exactly what we try to do with the professional reputation system. Because we're building this professional reputation solution for decentralized autonomous organizations where people can track their skills, their contribution when they work with different DAOs. And we want that data to remain public, to follow the SSI principles, but at the same time to give ability to mint NFT out of it.
Well, one of the things that you can't do with a verifiable credential, depends what standard you're following, but often there's non-transferability of credentials. I know there are, like in W3C credential spec, that you can do that, but in a lot of implementations in the Hyperledger Aries world and Indie world, you can't transfer these, whereas an NFT is completely transferable, right? So your thing about, like, you won't put a house record, it's your record on an NFT, but perhaps the asset itself, the house, who knows, could be that, because the ownership of that could be transferable. The publicly discoverable aspect of it is quite interesting as well. One of the biggest problems we've been kind of thinking about in the digital credential or self-sovereign identity space is the whole concept of doing decentralized discovery. That if I have a couple networks that are operating and perhaps there's a credential issuer on another network, or perhaps you could do some form of matching between two entities on different networks because there's value in doing that. How could people discover each other? And is that where kind of using a blockchain perhaps, or storing data in a centralized place, but on a decentralized kind of network, but on a blockchain, would help with discovery? Or it seems like that's a similar problem in the Web3 space and in the SSI space. Is how do you enable discoverability between two entities without putting a central authority in the middle?
Yeah, so this is a perfect problem that can be solved through decentralized technology. And there's not a lot of really production and popular solutions, but it seems like making the system decentralized and permissionless is a good start, but it wouldn't work for all use cases. So, for example, for COVID credentials, I don't believe there would be a fully decentralized, fully permissionless registry of issuers, because that is a highly sensitive area. There's a lot of compliance. There's a lot of government or regulatory requirements. On the other hand, in areas like professional credentialing and professional reputation, it's actually beneficial to make the system decentralized. So I imagine this to look like a. So first of all, what are the benefits of using blockchain here? First, you get, if you build a tokenomics or just engineer economic principles into the system, it doesn't need to use cryptocurrency, but I think that's just the easiest way to do it. You can set up incentives for data issuers, for data curators, for data taxonomy editors, issuer registry curators, to make this data more valuable to the verifiers. And then, as it is usually in SSI systems, verifiers are the one who are paying to access the data. So if it is professional data, maybe HR agency or employer or somebody looking to hire a freelancer, or somebody investor looking to check founder profile or vice versa, the verifier would pay to access this data, but then they would also enjoy the benefits of this data being curated and tailored to first of all, curated. So we want to allow anybody, when we and I'm talking about specifically professional identity here. When we design professional identity system, we want anybody to be able to write data as long as holder agrees to and accepts those credentials. But then on top of that, we need these decentralized curation and taxonomy mechanisms so that data that is not useful to the verifiers is not prioritized, or it is weighted much lower, or it is just hidden from the from the results. So this way, we can create a system that is similar to LinkedIn in terms of its features, that has verifiability for each piece of data, and it is queryable by verifiers as long as, again, holders agree to share this information. So it's always up to the holder to share or not share some piece of data. We can also design the tokenomics of such a system in a way that curators are compensated. Maybe another or more specific example would be designing a skill taxonomy system and schema and data model system. So for professional credentialing, there's a lot of different occupations, a lot of different skills, and all existing taxonomies for skills, they're centralized. They usually run created by the governments or some consortium of universities or maybe World Bank. And the problem with those systems is that because they are centralized and they are populated manually by a single organization, they're quite slow to reflect the changes in real economy. Especially today, the economy is moving so much faster. There's new types of work, there's new skills, there's new organizations created every day. And centralized registry of all or taxonomy of all skills cannot reflect it timely. Like we need most decentralized autonomous organizations need to hire people with skills that do not exist in those in those taxonomies because they were created in the last few years. If we decentralize the system, we're able to keep track of those changes quite fast in real time, because organizations, employers are able to directly input their data, what they're looking for, that is being reflected in the taxonomy. Then holders can see what is possible, like what can I learn, what skills are required in the economy today, how much am I being paid for that. They can go learn and prove that they have those skills, and then they can complete projects with DAOs, receive credentials and verification that they own those skills, and then build up their profile to make it just stronger and get more interesting projects.
So in this case, the credentials are they kind of on the edge? They're user controlled. They could be shared through this, I guess, this protocol that allows for discoverability and verification, but are they in the form of a verifiable credential or a piece of data that's just sitting on the edge, and its ownership, either its ownership could be proved to be yours if it's user generated, or its provenance could be proven if it has been issued to you by someone. Is that the idea?
Yeah, so I'm talking about very specific example. That's something that we built at Deep Skills, and this is an open professional identity protocol. And the idea here is that there's already a bunch of, I know at least 40 different professional credentialing and professional identity and professional reputation protocols in Web3. Some things issue NFTs, some of those maybe parse your GitHub profile and algorithmically create your score. Some of those look at your compensation, your contribution to different DAOs. Some of those look at your peer-to-peer assessment and relationships. Some of them assess soft skills or hard skills or engineering skills or designer skills. And the missing piece that we are trying to solve with there is to actually add some kind of generalization or unification layer on top, because there's a lot of data sources. Like traditionally, in a lot of SSI use cases that I've seen, one of the largest problems used to be that you don't have enough data. Issuance is hard. It's hard to convince issuers to share data to the network. Maybe if it's government, it's easier, but if it's enterprises, it's quite hard because they don't see immediate value that they get out of it. In decentralized world, in decentralized networks, it's easier. If it's on-chain data, it is publicly available already today, and you don't need to ask anybody. So for example, there's this proof of attendance protocol. It's kind of like a badge in the form of NFT that people receive for attending conferences or participating in hackathons or doing projects. And last time I checked, they had 700,000 POAPs issued to people. So that's already quite large database of credentials that can be used as one of the data sources. So those NFTs are stored on chain. And that is potentially one of the problems with them is that, yes, you cannot hide it. You can never delete anything from blockchain. Actually, most likely those NFTs will remain on chain for many, many years, long after people who own them will die, just because, well, that's how blockchain operates. It is immutable, but the solution of unification we're actually using something called ceramic network, which is like authorization layer on top of IPFS. And the ceramic network comes with DID built in. So how it works, you as a holder, you come in, you create your DID or you sign in with existing DID, then you have your personal data space or data pod where all this data is being saved to. So you control what do you want to record, and then you set up or control what do you want to actually make public. It is very similar to verifiable credentials. I can't say that it's exactly compliant to the spec, but again, I think verifiable credentials is not the most important piece of this technology. Things like DID and issuer registries and issuer holder verifier communication, that is much more important in the SSI concept. Verifiable credential is just a form of signed data.
It was an interesting comment you made, Stepan, about just in the physical world, it is tough to convince issuers. You're right, because it's just a whole different business model. Trying to convince a bank to issue verified banking or proof of asset ownership type of credentials to people so it could be used outside of their four walls is not there's no winning argument yet to make them want to even consider doing that. And even in kind of the offline world or the physical world, there are a lot of like these proxy issuance solutions. Even when just if we stick on the verified banking, for example, there's companies that scrape data out of your banking account and are able to organize it in a data format. Same thing is done with government IDs. They're all able to do it with enough kind of assurance that people will, the verifier or a relying party, I guess, will pay for that data. But it's quite interesting in the Web3 space, your comment of there's already a lot of there's a lot of issuance that's just done publicly, and there's a lot of these proxy issuances that are just done anyways. You're not relying on anyone to come in and issue data necessarily, and probably a lot of it could be automated, right? If you're just taking like GitHub commits, or if you're just taking contributions to DAOs or NFTs, you have a lot of it could be automated by this protocol that you're referring to. And sounds like a good idea to focus on one specific use case, because if you're trying to generalize this concept, it would be even harder. And I'm sure the work going behind creating a taxonomy is not simple stuff to get right anyways. Do you have a problem with this? Do you foresee a problem where, because like in, let's call it the offline world today, and if we start talking about kind of the recruiting process now for an employer or for a job, and start talking about HR, because this is basically what you're discussing here, that you're building, is it's one of its main customers is kind of whoever is handling recruiting for a DAO or for one of these projects. In the physical or the offline world, I guess it could go both ways. So sometimes it's tough to lie about your history. If you were, let's say, I committed a fraud in a previous job, I might have a tough time getting around that. Maybe I could just not even talk about it and get a job anyways and just commit another fraud. Is that kind of is that a similar problem that would exist in this digitally native method? Like, would it be easy enough for me even if I gained a bad reputation or I did whatever, could I just be selective about what I choose to share and not to share and just get by anyways? Like, is that a problem that is likely to be faced, or it's not even something to think about?
I think it's a fair problem, but I don't think we're at the stage where this is really the main problem to solve right now. And I've heard about a few potential approaches to solve it using zero-knowledge computation. So basically, you can prove the fact that you shared all the important credentials in your profile without revealing all of them. Something like inclusion proofs. And there's a lot of fancy cryptography that can be applied to make sure that it is privacy preserving and your reputation is complete. And also, if you, a lot of people in DAOs, they use pseudonyms and pseudonymous reputation. So you can basically go and start from scratch if you want, but you will need to build all that from zero, and it will take time. I think there's a lot of benefits to start this journey from Web3 and from DAOs specifically. Our goal, what we want to achieve, we want to create the future of work. And we believe that it will be changing the nature of work and especially the nature of recruitment and HR is changing dramatically. There's a lot of forces in play. Some of those are technology driven, like Web3, blockchain, crypto. Some of those are just exist, like pandemic and work from home and this shift in terms of where people work with home. So DAO is very interesting in this sense because it allows people to combine the culture of freelance working, where you choose when to work on, what to work on, with whom, and you are your own boss and you choose what to do and you choose interesting tasks with the benefits of organization, where a lot of people can collaborate and focus on hard problems to achieve great results. So DAOs are these kind of cooperatives or group chats with bank account that actually that's one of the reasons. And I think that is the main reason DAOs are becoming so much popular in the global IT talent shortage that we see today. So it's quite hard to find good engineer because there's much more demand. In DAOs, the problem is exactly the opposite. We work with a lot of top largest DAOs out there, and we hear the same problem from all of them. There's too many people in our Discord server that are looking for something to do, and we just don't have capacity to structure that onboarding and structure work. Because in DAOs, you don't have management, you don't have hierarchies, and it is complicated. Coordination is hard, and sometimes it gets chaotic. And that's one of the reasons why this reputation system, professional reputation system, is important, so that people can self-organize, people can figure out what are the projects, where I can contribute, how much I'm getting paid for it, how the compensation works, what are skills and values and knowledge of other people in the organization or across multiple DAOs. So you can come to one DAO, you can work on something, receive the skill credential, go to another DAO, prove that you already have it, and you can use the same data for example, to create meritocratic voting, where decision-making is done through democratic mechanism, but it is also weighted based on reputation or maybe even reputation specific domain. So if it's a technical decision, people with engineering background, their decision is more, their vote is more important or weights more than everybody else, because that would result in the better quality of decisions, and in the end of the day, it would benefit the whole organization. So we wanted specifically to start with decentralized autonomous organizations because that's where the problem is acute, where existing solutions do not work. So no DAO is using LinkedIn or CV or traditional HR practices. And it turns out that this space is growing so much faster and there's so much demand for this kind of tools that I believe that actually in DAOs, we will, through rapid experimentations, through many experiments running at the same time, and through this composability of different protocols and applications and data, we will figure out this new system for what we call future of work, how that looks like, where work is voluntary, where you do stuff that you really find meaningful yourself, where you are fairly compensated, where everybody who contributes to the organization is owner, kind of like in cooperative. In the same time, there's some programmable, algorithmic, and transparent governance system around it, something that we didn't have back when cooperatives were invented, for example, and where this decentralized digital identity is in the center. So decentralized identity is actually one of the biggest, largest missing pieces and unsolved problems in Web3 from the whole stack. So we now have a lot of finance and liquidity tools. We have NFTs, we have a lot of blockchains, we have wallets, we have UX is getting there, but identity is still unsolved. And it is amazing opportunity. And it is important to solve it because we need to be prepared for, I think there will be 1,000% or magnitudes more decentralized organizations created in the coming years. And a lot of people who think about starting a company or starting an organization today, when I talk to them, a lot of them are seriously considering starting in DAO, which wasn't the case just a few years ago because it was still the technology wasn't there, and also the best practices and the organizational design practices and governance practices were still too early. And now I think the just great momentum towards the direction.
There was an article that I saw, like some trending article this morning. I think it was a Business Insider thing. That I wrote it down because it was so tightly linked to what we're talking about here. But this Business Insider article just said workers, this is kind of talking about living through the pandemic and trying to work and stuff like that, that workers aren't just quitting their jobs. Many employees are delusioned with the way that their companies are mishandling the new realities of work. They no longer feel able or motivated to devote themselves to their jobs the way they did before the pandemic. And so I guess if you say the future of work is purpose-driven, people are kind of losing their purpose a little bit right now, or their sense of purpose in their jobs that they're doing. And I guess one of the big differentiators with the DAO is that if it's open, sure, we have to solve the problem of I need to provide the right professional ID credentials and the DAO needs to be able to structure their onboarding process in a good way that it could keep scaling without too much kind of intervention or manual intervention. But as someone just looking to join a cause, to join a community, to feel passionate and happy about the work that you're doing, it gives you a better way as a worker looking for work to kind of do your due diligence on an organization, right? Because I could look at a DAO and I could perhaps see kind of underneath what is happening. Whereas if I'm joining a corporation today, I honestly have no clue other than just whatever the public image is for this company or some folks I talk to. But the real ethos of it and everything that's going on, I can't see until I join this company. Then if I move towards just governance, to participate in decentralized governance of a DAO, do you think it's going to start evolving more where there's maybe more rules? It's more of a rule based on the credentials or the professional ID you have, that you'll have different kind of rights and privileges based on that to participate in governance or to do certain things in the DAO. How do you see that kind of evolving from just everyone that has a token has the same vote or the same power, which could be very valuable for certain use cases, but perhaps for others, you want to have a little bit more of a rule set?
Yeah, so this is still big and largely open area for innovation. So even today, we see a lot of governance mechanisms that are not just one token, one vote. We see quadratic voting, where it is much more fair towards a minority with strong opinions, and then somebody who owns 51% stake in the organization cannot single-handedly make any decisions. We see reputation-weighted voting systems like Colony, for example, and they have this interesting concept about decaying reputation. We see badges and credentials and NFTs that give people roles or award them for their previous contribution. So this space is becoming much more advanced. And I also very much agree, and this resonates with me a lot, the fact that DAOs are all about purpose and community first, and then second comes the organizational goals. So there's some, in every DAO today, there's some sort of centralization, there's some sort of alignment and then coordination. It is not just complete chaos and anarchy, otherwise nothing will be done. But it is open. And also our vision is we want to build open source organizations, so that organizational processes and best practices and definition of work and definition for different roles can be forked and reused by different organizations. And that's just happening a lot in DAOs. Like when you create just a private company, it basically is closed source. So unless you hire somebody, they don't know what's happening inside, as you said. They also your processes, you need to set up them from the ground up. Yes, you can learn from best practices, but you cannot just copy and paste maybe a governance smart contract or existing definition for some roles, or Discord bot, or some kind of treasury management software. In Web3, in DAOs, all of that is open source. People are happy to share, and even within a single DAO, you can have competition. So it is not like you don't need to ask anybody's permission. There's a lot of actually, many examples of people building something within a DAO that they just thought it would be a good idea. They write a proposal, they get funding from DAO treasury, and then some experiments fail, but some of those are becoming successful, very successful applications. For example, Coordinate at Your Own Finance. It started as an internal project, and now it is a tool that is used for compensation management at many DAOs. And it's actually quite interesting how it works. Instead of having a monthly salary, people get 100 tokens at the end of the month in their small group, and they can give those tokens, and those are called gift tokens. They can give it to other people to basically answer the question who, in their opinion, contributed the most to overall organizational goal or the goal of this smaller team. And that creates this meritocratic compensation mechanism where your salary is not predefined, and people who are, it's not, and it's also not a popularity contest. So you're getting paid for actual value created, not for being active or just being there and like being on the contract and receiving your payment. So today, DAOs and governance in DAOs it requires a lot of initiative. It is the leadership is emergent. It is actually expected from contributors that they come up with their own tasks and things to do themselves, which doesn't work for all people. But it is actually quite a good approach for the current stage of the industry, where we need to innovate a lot, where we need to create these practices. And then later on, as DAOs becoming larger and more mature, tools like Deep Skills will help existing DAOs to actually structure the work so that more contributors can come and see already predefined rules regarding what they need to do and how much are they getting paid, and basically how the process works inside the organization. So governance is important piece, and there's a lot of innovation happening in it, but governance is not the only purpose of the DAO. It used to be like that. Just 1.5 years ago, most DAOs, their only function and feature was you can have a token and you can vote with this token for some decision. Today, it's not true. Today, if you create a DAO and there's nothing except just token voting, it will be considered just a scam, because there's no value produced, there's no work being done. It's just like a wrapper for a centralized organization that doesn't really do anything. And I think the most value in DAOs is not in this being trying to look decentralized. It's actually in decentralizing work. And decentralized work is beneficial both to organizational goal, because you actually attract people who share your vision and your purpose and your mission, and for the people who are contributors, because now they have freedom to work on what they feel is important for them, own the result of their work. So people get full ownership because you can choose to receive salary or part of your salary, part of your compensation in tokens, which is similar as equity. So basically everybody has an option in DAO. And I think at the end of the day, it's not even, and also generally on average, compensation in DAOs today is larger than in corporations. Some people are making up to millions of dollars per year, of course, with option pools and benefit and bonuses, and those are early joiners, but that's significant for just engineer, for example. But at the end of the day, I think it is not about compensation, not about tokens. It is about this ability to live up to the most of your potential. If you join the team that you share values with, and you have ability to work towards, you feel as purpose and you just find meaningful and important, I think in that circumstances, people are the most productive, at least me personally.
I was reading something over the holidays that was talking about just kind of the top contributors to Wikipedia and just what drives them to do this. And there was a story of one of the largest contributors is he works at, I don't know if it's the US-Canada border, but he's a border agency, full-time job, but on evenings and weekends, he just loves contributing and has contributed to tens of thousands of pages on Wikipedia. So it's something that this person in particular is super passionate about. It's something that both kind of Wikipedia Foundation and value creation, and then just the value that the whole world gets from it, people have gained tremendously from it. So it just shows you the impact of just some kind of passion work, even if it's a part-time thing. I totally agree with your point. You could be doing something 5 hours a week, but if you're super passionate about it, the quality and the effort that you're going to put into it is going to be larger than something you may be spending 40 hours doing per week. And it seems like the community is the value, right? In a DAO so for kind of this protocol. So we've been talking a little bit about how it could be used to onboard, and that's a complex thing on its own. But when we talked a little bit about kind of what the that there's maybe not the case in the digital world, but I'm sure there's still always kind of a lack of credentials that are available out there today. Is the second part, beyond helping the verifications happen, is the second part of this protocol to actually create more of a supply of credentials that exist in there for future DAOs that could be reused. And if so, how do you envision that working? Is it a DAO a DAO's activity would result in an issuance of new credentials through the system. And then kind of the second part to this question is, you mentioned a bit earlier that so there's obviously no centralized like form of management or hierarchy in a DAO. There is a need for different types of skill sets or different types of roles. So is that something that would be handled within kind of this taxonomy that could be reused by others? And then are there, how do you look at kind of different types of credentials for different types of roles? Like what would be some of these new types of credentials that become available that are web native? So forget the diploma and forget the LinkedIn stuff. Like what are some of these, if you could maybe give kind of a flavor of what some of these new types of credentials are that have a lot of value for DAOs, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, so I can just share how it works at Deep Skills and how we approach this, because there's actually many applications and protocols that approach the same problem from very different angles. And because all of them are open, I actually see no problem of combining all of that into single more comprehensive profile. But for now, it's still mostly early stage for most applications. So what we do, we start working with a DAO. For example, Aragon DAO is one of our clients. We have a workshop with them, and we help them to define specific roles and projects that those people work on and tasks that those projects consist of. So for example, in Aragon, there's a technical support role. You need to answer technical support queries. It's not something super that requires a lot of background and training, but it is a very specific role that it requires some skills and some knowledge. Another example would be Deep Work Studio, where we first tested it. And Deep Work, there's different. It's a design studio, and then there's different roles like user researcher or designer or workshop facilitator or art director. So for each of those roles, it is defined into very granular tasks. So if you're a workshop facilitator, first you need to set up time for the workshop, then you need to prepare a mirror board, then you need to set up a Zoom call, set up background music, ask questions, compile results, create a presentation afterwards, share this presentation, receive feedback. So the whole process of doing that specific type of work. So first, what we do, we split it, we just write it down in form of Gitbook, so that every task is well defined, what it is, how you can get it, what constitutes for completion of that task, how it is verified, what is the evidence, and so on. Then in Deep Skills app, any DAO can create their own projects and their own tasks, and we help to onboard them to do it, and then they can open these projects. So one benefit that DAOs have that traditional organizations don't have is that you can attract community to help you do your job. So for Aragon, yes, they have this problem. They need to do more technical support that they're able to. So, and in their Discord, they have, 5,000 or 10,000 people, many of whom are interested in contributing and getting paid for this work. So people join, they join this project, they follow the instruction, they complete the work. If the work is good, they're getting paid. And also, along with the payment, credentials issued to their digital identity, so that now they can either work for more projects for the same DAO, or work for other DAO, or maybe work for multiple DAOs at the same time if it's not a full-time role. And every time they complete the project, their skill increases, so that you can then you can see who has competency in what. And also people are able to choose some skills that they don't have, but they're willing to use, and they are looking for mentors, for example, from existing contributors, so that DAOs can also, through this onboarding and delegation and coordination of work, they can also upskill other contributors if there's a shortage of talent in that specific industry. And that data is issued in the form of credentials. And because there's many other protocols and we actually see that, as I mentioned, there's abundance of data in Web3 regarding personal identities compared to Web2, where some data you can get through APIs, maybe from GitHub, but you cannot generally get data from employers about performance, because employers have, again, same problem, performance, have zero incentive to share this data. And for DAO, this is not their data, this is data of the contributor, and DAOs are incentivized in using these tools because they actually, at the end of the day, they get their work done faster and better quality.
Thanks for tuning in today. Hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. To stay up to speed with future episodes, or to catch up on ones you may have missed, make sure to check out the SSI Orbit podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure you subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, or wish to see someone in particular on a future episode, you can find me by searching Mathieu Glaude on LinkedIn or Twitter. Feel free to reach out to me directly and I'll get back to you. See you all next time.